village board meeting to order is 7:41. All trustees are present except trustee Maher, who is excused. Okay, so trustee Maher and trustee McKay, both excused. What are you doing over there? I know you move, please.
It is hot for some.
Okay, your name tag.
I'm so used to sitting in this seat.
I didn't think anything of it.
I didn't understand what.
Yeah, just for standing, thank you.
I was said something and I'm like,
Has this meeting been publicly noticed? The meeting has been posted and noticed according to law. Thank you. Just a reminder, stop into your microphones so that the video recording can pick up your comments. The first item on our agenda is special order of business. We have to consider the scope of police station phase 2B. Right.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
So back this evening to present our final floor plan and the final budget for the Phase 2B garage expansion or build out at the Shorewood Police Department. Most of you remember from the last time I was here, we reviewed a number of options for the garage area and came up with our final recommendation. We talked through a couple of logistics I had to do with the garage. I did have a slideshow, but I think we're skipping that and just sticking with the packet that was handed out to you. So if you reference that, we did provide the final floor plan for the space, along with the final budget, which I think you have previously seen. So the option we're proposing is $749,703, and then attach the final layout, which
What is that? What's the layout? Since we're not using PowerPoint, which one, is it 1A1?
the floor plan
Yeah.
should be the one that's like this. I believe it is, yes, 1A1, correct.
Could you just take, how many spaces are there?
13 spaces, I believe. And that's what we took a look at since our last meeting. I know that was a topic of discussion. So we looked at that just to make sure we're being as efficient as possible with the parking and all the car maneuvering from the garage space works. So we took a look at that, fine-tuned a couple things, no major changes since last time we presented this to you. Just made sure it's efficient and effective.
Does anyone have any questions before I ask them? Nope. So just remind me, because I didn't have time to look back, but I believe, how many police cars do we have?
11.
11? Is that what you said?
11, yeah.
And then there's 2 extra spaces for, I think it said, for towed vehicles?
Yeah, I think that was just general overflow storage for the vehicle was being worked on for maintenance purposes and/or extra vehicles. If they were going to be selling one, they might have one sitting idle for a while, something of that nature. Just a little extra space and/or would allow for potential future growth if there was ever a need.
Oh, and so when you looked at this, the intent was, last time I remember the board's direction was, we budgeted $500,000 for it, and it came in at $750,000, and you were going to take a look at, can it get any lower? Was there no cost savings?
There is no cost savings for, if we were to eliminate 2 stalls of parking and shift that wall for the community space, there really wouldn't be any savings. It would be negligible.
And for usage, the community space has shrunk from original, and so, but you definitely cannot eliminate the last 2 spaces to make the community space a little bigger for potential use in the future.
We certainly could. Like we talked last time, that wall for dividing the community room and garage could certainly move. That wall is flexible. I think we were just focusing on giving the garage space a good, efficient use of the space, a little bit of potential growth, and then the community space is a good size for what we believe you guys would need it for. And then again, moving that wall a little bit, losing those 2 spaces doesn't really save any money. In fact, it would probably add money down the road for building out the community room. Because that would be a bigger space, now you can fit more people. You probably need to add more bathrooms to handle the occupancy load for that larger space. So in fact, you'd be saving no money now, you'd probably be spending a little bit more potentially down the road for the community room.
Do you know how many square footage it would be added?
Adding to this current plan?
I'm just saying, yeah, that you made a statement that it would require relief from that.
If we shifted over and eliminated 2 stalls in the garage, I don't know, John, what do you think that would add, 500 square feet or something?
I can tell you. Give me 1 second.
Is it the 5265 number, community as far as duplo column base, which is 5265, or is it not that?
Well, 860 square feet.
How much, John?
860.
860 approximately is what we'd be adding to the community room, I guess, to eliminate 2 parking
I
spots.
mean, at some point, we may have an opportunity to increase our police shifts and need room for another vehicle. I mean, 13 isn't really excessive, you know.
All right,
I'll make a motion to approve the scope of police department renovation phase 2B option 1.
Second. Only other question is this it? Because it's grown by a million, I know not according to your numbers, but in 2000, I wasn't elected till 2016, so the 2015 numbers for Zimmerman, I wasn't around for, but in 16, the total cost was supposed to be 3.5 million. So that's what I was presented when I voted. Regardless, this is the last item that needs to be done on the police station.
As far as I'm aware, yes. I guess the only other thing I would throw out there is the resurfacing and possible maintenance of the parking lot spaces out front. The only other project on
Like
that.
re-asphalting it?
Re-asphalting the parking lot, correct.
Okay.
So it's not, I guess, necessarily under the construction side of things. So as far as the building is concerned, yes, this is the last piece.
So that area, sorry. So that area will not be reconstructed, it would be a resurface.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so,
And that's not included within the scope of the cost.
Correct.
Okay, just want to,
right, I
sorry.
know the HVAC was, or roof, I don't know why we didn't know that when we bought the building, but those 2 costs would push it up by $1 million. The roof and the HVAC.
Thank you.
And that's why I asked the question, because there are more that we don't know yet. Okay.
Well, there's nothing else that we have currently planned for the space that I'm aware of. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work on that.
Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is special order of business 4B. Consider memorandum of understanding for crossing guard services with Shorewood School District and agreement for crossing guard services. Rebecca.
So many of you probably saw the email, this has been forwarded to the school district for their review. I did not hear any specific comments back from the school district. Chief Miller, did you hear any specific comments back from Superintendent Davis?
No.
Okay. So, my understanding is that barring none, my recommendation to you would be that you would approve them contingent upon school district approval.
I thought that the school district had told us they don't have to vote on it for the school board, that it's just signed by the superintendent.
For the
Yeah. Because remember, I was saying, can we do it jointly, so we don't have to, we've
Oh,
done
yes,
that.
you're correct.
Right,
Yep.
okay, so I don't
Sorry.
think we need to make it contingent. Because,
Correct. I have heard no comments that were an issue from the school district.
Chief, you
Just here for questions.
okay, I have a few, but does anyone have any questions for the chief? Rebecca, trustee Mehta.
Yeah, I do, and so this is a 1-year contract, and we're gonna continue discussion with the school board about options for providing this service, and how have we determined, are we doing the full 2 board meetings again, or how are we gonna do that?
Good question. So, the last meeting, no, 2 meetings ago with the school board, our first meeting on crossing guards with both boards, President Shaw said that we were eliminating by board, that they felt very comfortable with just board rather than the subcommittee that was a standing committee. So I eliminated that, didn't appoint anyone to the by board based on her recommendation. So when she talked about it the last time about forming a smaller committee to look at this coming up in the next year, There's gonna be a few school board people that she picks, and he designated the JP&L members. So that'll be the group that will look at options for providing crossing guards after this year.
So are we waiting for them to convene that group, or, I mean,
We will actually be in communication with them after your action tonight to start scheduling the next date to meet,
okay.
which we forecasted to be in September.
Any other questions? So there was something in the memo, and it just talked about both parties decided to share the costs as a stopgap measure, and I don't recall that. I thought we talked about sharing the costs before the crossing guards went that service went out of business. So anyways, I just wanted to make that for the record, that we had talked about it prior.
We did
It
talk
wasn't
about it
just
prior
because
to, so I apologize if that.
That's okay.
We talked about it actually, but both times.
Yeah, both times. And then do we need to have two crossing guards continuing on at Maryland and Morris, or Murray? One I know is for for the St. Robert's traffic, and that is parochial school. I don't know, I wasn't around for when we decided to put one there, so I'm just asking, what is the intent of continuing it?
It's been there for as long as I know, and the cross traffic across Maryland and across Oakland cannot be, the premises that can't be handled by one person because we are crossing both Maryland and Capitol.
Have we ever approached St. Robert's to help assist with the financing of that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Or reach out at some point? And just, I know that and I'm happy to provide that service, but as we're getting tighter budgets, it might be something that we'll look into. And then the last thing was, what happens, it doesn't address what happens, like there's no clause, if this business goes out of business. So if this contractor or service. And so I think that's important that we would add something because we don't want to be in the same situation as before. Like if we agree, if they go out of business, we're going to, police departments, how are we going to handle that? Where is that memorialized? Since we've learned that it was it was an emergency.
So that did come up briefly in the discussion with the school board, and I believe in the consensus we all acknowledged that it was definitely not a routine circumstance that came up, and that
Will we execute it the same way, I guess is what I'm saying? Did it work? Will we do the same thing? Because I mean, since there aren't that many, I just have that fear of, if they weren't successful in one, maybe this will have the same problems.
As you're aware, this is the only response that we got back. I did check a couple references, and they've all been positive on the company. The company is all over the country, so I don't think we're going to have the same issue. But to answer your question, if they were to go out of business, the way that we did it was very, very difficult.
Right, that was my point.
We did hire back some of the people, but it was a daily, I can't make it, we need to sub with somebody from our staff. So we would really have to, if that were to happen, I don't think it will, but if it were to happen, we would really need to do something other than what we did.
And just you probably don't have time to put that in here now, but we should, when we learn something like that, and then we know we don't want to repeat it, that this is an MOU, it's not anything to do with the contractor, this is just between us and the school board, and it would be good to have, or next time, to have, well, if something like this was to occur again, what are we going to do?
that would be a really good discussion, because almost like a second phase of our discussion, our collaboration together.
Next MOU or
Yeah,
whatever we do.
no, I think it's a fair point, and in a way, so we can also best know how to support each other.
Yes.
We're never going to know the specific timing of it, but to the chief's point, there's some items that we could go through and talk through a little bit.
Right, because we were put in a really bad position where we had to tell our police force that they have to staff crossing, borders, and it's taking up a lot of the resources, and I just don't, if the chief's saying it was difficult, and we are feeling it's difficult, what are we gonna do about that if it happens again? So, okay, and that's all I had. Any other questions, trustee Carpenter and then trustee Warren?
I just had a question about the crossing guard locations. So everybody's 7:30 to 8:30 except Capitol Drive and Morris. And I don't know if there's a reason for that. They're 7 to 8. And maybe that's intentional. Or is that a different start time there? I just wanted to make sure that was.
I'll check on it. It might be a typo, it might be a start time. I'll check on that.
Thank you.
I was ready to make a motion. I don't know, Sarah, do you want the motion split up or do you want?
I have them split up, so if you could, that would be helpful.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with recommended changes from the village attorney as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Warren, a second by trustee Carpenter. Any further discussion? Trustee Mehta.
I just had a question, like under indemnity and termination, where it says note, and then it seems like a note from Nathan, so I just want to make sure that's not included in the,
Right, I think if you,
that's not part of the text of what we're talking about, right?
that's a great point. If you look, I think that the last sentence under each of those includes suggested alternative language.
So we'd be adopting it with the suggested alternative language?
Try to find that. I'm scrolling
Or
through.
under indemnity, it says if any such clause is deemed necessary by the district, the language, there's suggested language.
Yeah, I would assume we would go for suggested. Termination to, either party will terminate disagreement without causes, and maybe we need to make that clear in the motion.
Yeah.
Do you want to put a clause in there in the motion?
Let's see. Changes from the village attorney as presented while adopting the village attorney's recommended language.
Utilizing the recommended language in the.
That's better, yeah.
Is that okay? That work? Okay, so everyone's okay with that change unanimously, all right? So we have a motion and a second. Do you want to read it back?
To approve the memorandum of understanding with recommended changes from the village attorney as presented while adopting the utilizing recommended language from the village attorney.
I think you said it twice. I meant trustee Buckles, right? I think you can just put here, say it again.
All right, sorry.
It's good.
To approve the memorandum of understanding with recommended changes from the village attorney as presented.
Period.
Period.
I don't think the next sentence is repetitive, correct?
What did you add then?
I said utilizing recommended language.
Instead of, okay.
I guess that, yeah, grammatically, I'm going to go off here.
Right, it's just, we're adopting the memorandum with utilizing the.
So there was really no change to the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess recommended change encompasses the language that you suggested.
Okay, okay. Thank you, trustee Bachhorst.
I'm elated that we were able to at least find one company. I will be voting no on the first motion, given that we are requiring the school district to pay for 50%. In the past, I think it was around 10 years ago, the village of Shorewood took over the providing the safety services for the school district because of the need for many reasons with the budget decline very aggressively happening in the school district. Our community really supports our public schools as evidenced by the both the referendum passing, which unbelievable margins. So I know that there are members of this board that have pushed aggressively for requiring that the school district share in this cost. I don't agree with that aspect. I understand that I'm not going to win this vote on this, and I know that with speaking with the board members that no, they did not want to do that either, but they understood the makeup of this current board, so I will be voting.
And just to clarify, it was a unanimous vote to require 50%. Thank you for your comments.
I don't think you should try to be revisionist historian here.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. And then is there a second motion?
Yes. Well, there isn't one made, but you can.
I move to approve the agreement for crossing guard services between the Village of Shorewood and All City Management Services Incorporated.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, our next order of business is citizens to be heard. This item is for matters not on the agenda or on the agenda. Please step up to the microphone and state your name and address if there's anyone that would like to speak. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve, and is there any removals?
So moved.
Second?
I'd like to pull 6B. Any others? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with 6B. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And now we'll take up items that were pulled in the consent agenda, which is 6B. Consider committee approval and village board meeting minutes July 1st, 2019. I don't know which page it's on, but it says that trustee Carpenter is the public art liaison, trustee liaison, and that is trustee McKay. That's everything I had. Anybody else?
First page.
First page. Thank you. All right, all those, do we have a motion to approve the minutes with that change?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All right, a motion from trustee Warren, a second from trustee Carpenter. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing, which we have none. Now we'll go to new business. 9A, consider application for special privilege approval for building in the public right-of-way at 4600 North Wilson Drive. Director Barr.
President Roswick. The Planning and Development Department has received an application from the property owner of 4600 Wilson Drive to build within the right-of-way. They've applied for and received approval from the Design Review Board for a 7-foot addition to the front of their building, essentially replacing their awning with a more permanent improvement of a portico with a porch above the residential units. However, that footprint of that improvement actually encroaches the public right-of-way a very brief corner of it on the southwest side. We had the architect confirm this morning that it is a total of 1.62 square feet. So it's a very small triangle on that particular portion. The applicant indicated they didn't want to revise their design for the building because they felt it was more complete as a symmetrical design. They initially went to the Board of Appeals to get approval to build within the right-of-way. They were granted that variance in June, and so now before the board is...
So within the setback.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry, within the setback, sorry.
Big distinction.
Yep, thank you. So that was approved, understanding that they still needed approval to build within the right-of-way. And so that's what is before you tonight. They've applied for a special privilege approval, so we're processing the application accordingly. However, based on internal discussion with staff and the village attorney as well, there are other ways to allow this to happen, perhaps either through a discontinuance or a land sale of that little chunk. If the board agrees to move forward with allowing it, there's options on either special privilege or those things. Attorney Bayer would be happy to inform of those options if there's more questions on that.
Trustee Warren.
So I have a question. So if we do approve this tonight, does it create any kind of commercial interest for them, whether it's by easement or first possession? Or is this something that we approve tonight and we can essentially take back whenever we felt the need to do so?
Special privilege we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Thank you, that's a great question, that's a good launching point for this discussion. Under 46618, which is the section of that this application comes in on under the village code, those are generally for temporary obstructions in the public right-of-way. And such obstruction under our code and state statute can be ordered removed by the village at any time for any reason. So we see these a lot. The best example I would give for these would be the parklets that we see seasonally where there's going to be selling of restaurants in the right of way and things like that. I'm sorry.
Is there a permanent example? Like that you market in the right of way?
Right, that's what I'm getting to. Now, when we've done, when we've had more permanent structures that have been in the right of way, such as signage, what we've generally done is we've looked at other types of solutions, be it an easement or some other, if it's a municipally owned land, if there's a tiny corner or a piece, you always have the option of selling. Here, what we have is not really a municipal owned piece of land, but really part of the right of way. And there was I'm not sure if everybody got the email this afternoon, I got this from Bart, you're right, we're talking about a 1.62 square foot area, which is a little bit slightly bigger than an 8.5 by 11 piece of building. So what they've got is, first they went to the Board of Appeals to build, to build further back, to exceed the setback requirements. And they've got this little tiny corner of their construction that would intrude onto the public right of way. Now, to give you a little history of the right of way along that Wilson Drive area, I know this came up a number of years ago when there was discussion of, how are we going to rebuild Wilson Drive? And we looked at it. If you look on the GIS map that's on the Shorewood page, the right of way is extremely large. It extends from right next to the Oak Leaf Trail on the west side of Wilson Drive, and it extends pretty far past the finished roadway. Now that the right of way, now that the reconstruction of Wilson Drive is done. My guess is probably 100 years or so ago, they anticipated that there would be a really major thoroughfare there, and they dedicated a really wide right of way. Yet there was, they never built anything that wide. I-43 is a little bit further west, and they probably thought they were going to put a major roadway next to the river there, and it just never materialized. So the dedicated right-of-way in that area is extremely wide and extremely large, and it's currently larger than than is being used for the roadway. So you have that unique scenario. You've got a very wide right-of-way, but in terms of 48.8 or 466.18, the special privilege, again, this is very different than the traditional type of special privilege where there's a temporary obstruction. So from a legal sense, yes, I mean, there could be, if there's a reason to...
Who owns the land underneath?
Well, it's technically, yes, if you vacated the right of way, it would revert back to the adjoining landowner.
So why wouldn't we just do that?
You can, that's absolutely what you can do. You could say, you could take this little tiny piece of land, now there's a whole process under the state statutes. It's a little bit involved, but it involves some notices and some meetings. But essentially, you'd take a portion of the right-of-way that's a little bit bigger than this piece of paper, and you give all the formal notices, and you'd have them, you'd add it to a couple of agendas, and you could theoretically abandon that portion, that tiny portion of the right-of-way to accommodate the construction. My recommendation, if you were considering allowing this, would either be to give consideration to an abandonment of that tiny portion of the right-of-way, or consider some sort of easement like we do with a more permanent structure, such as a sign for a business that might be placed in the right-of-way. So that would be my recommendation, because it doesn't really fit it's sort of a square peg round hole when you talk about a special privilege. It's more of a temporary thing. So not that, and again, I have no policy opinion there, but I want you to understand that if you want to make this happen, if you think it's a good construction, my recommendation would be to either go the easement route or the abandonment of the tiny portion of the right-of-way, as opposed to a special privilege.
Trustee Carpenter and then Warren.
Well, I have a somewhat separate question, more aesthetic question on the layout, more of a legal question. Okay, go. Then you go.
I was just going to say, conceptually, I don't have an issue with this. I guess my preference would be to I think this is probably the easement route, retain our ability to kind of retain our ownership of the land, retain that as a right of way, but allow them to build on it. So I guess I don't know that I would want to go the abandonment route. It seems like.
What's the easement mean? And I was going to piggyback on that, because I thought it's permanent easement, correct? So because you get, and then what does that mean if the building burned down, or can they rebuild? And
Right.
We've always done permanent access easements, you know, and so I don't know what you're recommending, which gets to your point. Like if it's a permanent one, then it's very different.
Yeah, and that's all up for negotiation. Certainly, you know, the expiration could be tied to if if there's ever a loss of physical property due to active nature or whatever, or it's voluntarily torn down, and that area is abandoned, then the easement would expire. You know,
What if
there's
you wanted to
certain,
build a highway and you've granted an easement? So, because either way, you're either vacating the right of way or you're getting an easement, wouldn't we lose the ability to use the right of way?
on the portion that you abandoned, yes. On the
Or the easement.
one in the
Is it the same?
1.6. Oh, well, it depends on the terms that are written into the easement.
So you could write an easement, but if you needed it for some purpose, you could talk to that, you could theoretically take it back. I mean, I wouldn't anticipate making them tear down a portion of the balcony, but if there was some really pressing, urgent, critical need to take it back, you could.
Anything's possible. I mean, you know, as long as there's consideration for it and there's agreeing parties, anything's possible. I mean, you can, you know, legally, there's a lot of different options.
And just going on the easement really quickly, it makes the most proper sense to vacate the right of way, because if we have access right away, which we do, so if we needed to expand, we still have plenty on the county side. I just want to make sure that that land reverts to that property owner.
It would, under state law, yeah. Any portion of a right of way that's abandoned would, under state law, it'll revert to the adjoining landowner.
And the only reason I say that is easements, and I could be wrong, but ones that I've ever adopted personally were always permanent, like a riverwalk access, or a park, or a maintenance easement where it's super perpetuity, or,
It could be, certainly.
you know, pedestrian walkway next to Ma Pizza, like that's just, so if we intend to take it back, I just don't know how that works, it's weird to me. So
Well,
vacating
there's-
right away means, yeah, we don't need any more, and here's your land back, and you can build your building, and then there's no question, but that's my preference. Trustee Carpenter.
So just so I'm clear, on the architectural drawing in the packet, that it's that west elevation, small arch that is in the right of way, that?
It's the pier, so
That
that pier in the corner
Yeah.
projects into the right of way, correct? So I think on the next page, or maybe prior, I don't know what I have in here, the plan view would show the little clipped corner.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
this over here, right? This little section. that
Yes,
little column.
yep, the
And so
very,
it's just that small 8.5 by 11 piece. And that's, so if you're walking south on Wilson, you would turn into this hallway, sort of archway.
yeah,
I mean, you could walk around the column, obviously, but
Correct.
that's what you would see
yes.
coming up.
Yeah, it doesn't impact the sidewalk, but to get onto the property, correct, that would there be a sidewalk connecting it to that arcade.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Or is it the portion of the balcony above that hangs up over, or is there a physical structure that's?
It's the physical structure
Okay,
itself.
okay.
Correct.
Trustee Mata.
I just, given the tiny area that it is, I don't know to go through all the effort we have to do to vacate the right of way and then notifying utilities and extra meetings. I mean, it's just a lot of staff time and effort, and I'm assuming an easement is quicker and easier, less attorney time, and et cetera. So I support doing the easement too, just because I think it's overkill to go through that whole process for a foot square.
And what would do we have to create those terms today for the easement?
No, I think well, there'd have to be, first of all, I think it's agenda just for consideration of the special privilege. So that's really what we decided tonight. But it's certainly appropriate to talk about, talk with the applicant about, we're either interested in this project, we think it's great, or not great, or what, anything in between, and say, talk about alternatives. Recommendation would be not to take action on the alternative tonight. But the other thing is, for the applicant might say, well, unless, if I have an easement with with terms and conditions that might might have to make me remove A, B, and C. Maybe that's, maybe that affects the applicant's decision as to whether to move forward. So obviously there has to be some discussion.
So unless, for tonight's vote, unless we are going to say yes to the special privilege,
Right.
then we have time for you to work with the applicant, or someone to work with the applicant to say,
Yeah, I mean, I
because
think-
either way, it's going to take meetings to vacate, or it's going to take meetings to establish an easement, is that what you're saying? But maybe there's more for vacating, but it's not this meeting. That's what you're saying.
Right, right, and you could direct staff to reach out and have further discussions with the applicant about how do we make A, B, and C theoretically possible. That's certainly appropriate. And, I can work with Court on, just, what might be, what the terms and conditions might look like.
Okay, Trustee Moore.
Well, it sounds to me like we're all interested, I think the purposes of this meeting, I think we're all interested in getting to the finish line here. We're all, it seems like we're generally okay with this. So I think the question then becomes, how do we most easily and effectively do this? And I think we rely on your expertise to guide us there.
And Barb.
And-
Director Barb.
Sorry, Barb.
No, that's fine, yeah, essentially, I'm processing the application because I came in as an application, but I was expecting a different direction to go there, so I'm just looking for, see if there's consensus to move forward with it, whether or not it's a vacation or a easement. If there's any further guidance on that, I guess we could take it otherwise.
I think it's for the applicant, if it makes more sense to you, whatever your expertise, I think is what Trustee Ward is saying. If you think it makes more sense to vacate it and it takes one extra meeting, then you'll give us that recommendation. If you think it makes sense because you need it to be more fast and the applicant needs that, then you'll make that recommendation. But whatever it is, it would be bringing something back to us. Is that correct?
We did get that.
Okay. Rebecca.
I just wanted to clarify, unless there's something else, typically a request to vacate an easement, the cost is borne by the property owner because they're making that request on behalf of the municipality in terms of attorney time for drafting easements as well as for the publication of that taking place.
And what's the difference in cost, do you know?
Is it not off the top of my head, but
That's a factor too.
It depends what terms, I mean, the applicant might say, well, unless I'm gonna own it, I don't care, I'm not interested in an easement, or, I mean, so I don't know, I mean, we haven't had a discussion.
my recommendation is that they bear the burden of the cost in order to pay the cost of the vacate or the easement.
Makes sense. So do we need to do anything, or just not take action? Do we
I
need a
think-
motion not to take action, or just?
Vote- You can vote on the special privilege.
With direction to work with the applicant on,
Yeah, I don't
So
even
it's
think
not
that
like
has to
just
be
a-
part of the motion, you can just direct staff and that'll be part of the minutes to further follow up with the
Okay.
applicant on exploring either an easement or a vacation of right of way to facilitate transfer or use of the parcel by the applicant.
And just to if you don't mind. So special privilege is not necessarily appropriate here because it's not a temporary structure. We want to get something more permanent, which would be easement or.
Yeah, and your point too was well taken, that if, there's adverse possession, which after 20 or 30 years, you might say, well, it's ours. So,
and there's an annual fee for a special privilege, correct?
Only for temporary special privileges, so parklets and outdoor seating come back every year, but if it's granted on a more permanent basis, it's there as long as it's in good condition, we can always ask for it to be removed or replaced, but those are not annual reviews, like so landscaping, things that come, retaining walls, those don't come back to the board every year. The ones that come back to the board every year are the temporary ones, so they're the parklets and outdoor seating.
Okay. All right, do we have a trustee Brennan?
Does the applicant have
Yes.
anything they want to
Thank you.
say before?
Would you like to come and speak?
I would like to come and speak if that's
State
okay.
your name and your address.
My name is David Caradimas. I own the property that we're speaking about. My address is unfortunately no longer in Shorewood. It's 3000 East Newberry Boulevard. And what I want to talk to you about is that I'm out of time. This began with just building up the roof a few years ago, and I delayed it because I had this brainchild of building the balcony, which was from the beginning just a charitable donation to the neighborhood. Shorewood has been wonderful with this property, acting as partners, and I wanted to do what was right. And that roof has to be replaced before winter. It's ready to collapse. And I have to pull the trigger within the next 2 weeks. And this balcony is entitled.
I'm just wondering if we can bring it back to the next meeting.
That's why I don't think we have time to keep waiting for more meetings. And what's going to be even more complicated is the fire marshal who's talking about making me retroactively put in a fire alarm system throughout the entire building, which would be fatal to the whole project. That would cost like $150,000 to do that. And like I said, this is a charitable donation from the beginning to do something, to take a building that is obsolete and make it beautiful. But if I have to add another $150,000 to that to retroactively put in a fire alarm system, it's just not going to happen. So very quickly, we need to decide if we're going to do an easement. I'm an attorney also. That would, I think, be the quickest and easiest way to get this done. The restrictions, just common sense that if the building, if the balcony is removed, that the easement would expire, would be simple enough. I don't know if we can get through the fire marshal within a couple of
I was
weeks.
gonna say, can we vote on an easement tonight? No, because we don't have one in front of us.
There's
It doesn't mean that
really-
we don't see the direction and that there's no objection, so you probably will proceed under that, but I don't think we legally can vote.
The only thing that was noticed was consideration of a special privilege, but, you know, I think based upon the discussion, I think you can kind of see where everybody's at.
So we're all on the same page that we want this to happen. I'd love to see this happen. I do work at Colonial Court and I have to look at this every day. And
Can we put that in motion then, that with the intent of, like, so that it's formalized?
I guess you could maybe just give direction to staff to follow up with the applicant on exploring the possibility of bringing an easement back to the village board for consideration would be appropriate. No, it'll be reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
I would just like to offer you some advice relative to the fire marshal. This board is not at any liberty to stand in an approval process relative to fire code and the regulations by the fire marshal. So this would not be the appropriate body of which to address those concerns with relative to your sprinkler system.
oh, I understand.
So I just wanted to advise you of that. So if you are having those discussions, I would recommend that you follow up with the fire department, because this board is not in a position to do that.
So we're moving along as fast as we can, giving them whatever they ask us to give them.
Okay, good. I just wanted to advise you that it sounds like you're aware.
Okay.
That's why I want to be aware of that, like I said, we're out of time, and either we get this done or I've got to put another flat roof on it, and then we can revisit this in 40 years when that roof is done with.
So we could direct you to work with them, but I think this is the North Shore Fire Department board, if it's an exception to the standards, then it would have to come before the board, wouldn't it?
I don't believe that's going to be within, it's something that should be better administered by the fire department, which is the approving agency to do that.
Yes, and we are working with them.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So
Just work.
for this, I think we kind of see the tea leaves here. We do, you know, this, I don't think necessarily that we're thinking the special privilege is appropriate here, but I think we all are, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think I'm reading the room as we want to move forward with the easement and get it done quickly for you. So I don't know exactly what that process is, but I mean,
Can we bring it back in 2 weeks? You'll have the direction that you're hearing, but we just can't vote. But the next vote available is 2 weeks, is that too early?
I guess, you know, I would have to sit down with Bart and the applicant and talk about what the terms thereof would be, and if that's agreeable.
Well, if we're all on the same page,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a handshake kind of person, and Shorewood has worked wonderfully with me. I'm not concerned about the rug being pulled from under me. My bigger concern is the fire marshal, and you know, I know this isn't before you, but we're not affecting the internal living space at all. We're not even changing the footprint of the property. We're taking the canopy and turning it into a balcony. But we all know what the rules are, so we've got to find a way within the code to make this happen.
Thank you, Trustee Buckers.
Are we proposing a special meeting in 2 weeks? Because our next board meeting is this week.
Our next board meeting is August 5th. Our next regular scheduled meeting.
Right, which is 3 weeks.
I think he's okay with not having the final vote.
I'm fine without it being formal. I trust that we can work this out. I just want everyone to know that we've got to get this wrapped up with one another. And the delay has been largely on my part, so I'm not pointing fingers. This was me trying to, my idea is to start small and they keep blossoming into more and more extreme ideas.
Sounds like most of ours too, yeah. Thank you, we appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Just stop there.
If you could also look in this
Okay, I'll make a motion to
Oh, yes, the address payment, would like the motion. So can you propose a motion for us with that?
I would move to approve to deny the special privilege permit as requested and direct staff to the attorney to work with the applicant to devise an acceptable mechanism to proceed to come before the board for final approval on August 5th, and for the applicant to pay for the attorney time and any other publication requests required to facilitate that change. Was that loud enough?
Yeah. I didn't get it all, but I'll be going back and take it.
Okay. Sorry. That's right, you guys should have been saying
Gotcha.
that.
Okay. We're going to propose that motion.
Second.
What do you have to? Any second? Somebody just
I-
Okay, a motion is to deny, because
Correct.
Rebecca said I moved to approve to deny, so it's to
Oh,
deny.
motion to amend.
Right, to deny the special.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Carpenter, a second by trustee Warren, and trustee Buffers.
So, forgive me, Attorney Bear, I thought you said that we should not vote on this tonight, that we should, because if we do deny this evening,
Well, I think
this
that,
option is then out.
well, first of all, I think that was vague enough, because it just said to direct staff to bring another option back to the board, so you haven't voted on anything.
We're denying the special privilege.
Right,
motion.
right.
You told us to do. That's what you said. I said, what motion should we do?
But I think that's to direct staff to explore something else to bring back to consider. It's vague enough that you're not actually voting on it. You're not
No, I
taking-
understand that, but we are taking the option for the special privilege out.
Right.
Correct. Which is your recommendation?
Well, that's based upon, I guess you could call it that.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions, trustee Buffers? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming tonight. The next order of business is to consider addendum 1 to the CDA in the Village of Shorewood.
The CDA has elected to move forward and has approved an investment policy. One of the components of that, in order to invest the funds, is that we need to modify the MOU by the striking of one line that allows the funds to be kept somewhere else for purposes of investment reasons, other than the village's general checking account. So that MOU reflects that in the addendum language. The CDA did meet on Friday. They approved addendum 1 to the MOU between the CDA and the Village of Shorewood, and they also approved an investment policy for their funds, of which is attached for your reference.
Mark, I apologize, Director Manson. I did not attend the CD meeting this Friday, last Friday. And I just remember a recommendation earlier that you wanted to keep everything simple and in the same, I think that's why it was written. Could you just, for the board, state, is this acceptable and what was, why the change?
The investment policy adopted by the CDA is consistent with village